Hello again. Bernie Miklasz with you on this Friday afternoon. Welcome back to the Bernie Miklasz Show on YouTube. Thank you for your support. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Doesn't cost you anything, as I like to say. And get the word out if you can. And of course, hit that like button and leave comments. All of that stuff is great. Also, check out today's Gas House Gang YouTube video that I did with Matt Pauley. I'm a member of the Gas House Gang at KMOX. It's a rotating cast with Tom Ackerman, Kevin Wheeler, Matt Pauley, and myself. And today it was Matt Pauley and I working together. We covered a lot of grounds about a lot of topics, so you can check that out. It's easy to find. Just do a search for KMOX and Gas House Gang, and you'll get to it. Another free video for your perusal. Also, that is available in podcast version too. Anyway, let's get to today's subject. You can probably guess what I want to talk about based on my choice of headwear, right? Question: do you believe blue? Yeah, I mean, that's a little different from the standard question. Do you bleed blue? I want to know if you believe blue. I can only speak for my own self, but I would have to say yes. I'm believing in the Blues, but this isn't some kind of bandwagon thing. I've been extremely fired up about the Blues since they hired Jim Montgomery as coach back there. Well, he took over on November 25th. Kudos to Doug Armstrong, general manager, for making a decisive, impactful intervention that greatly upgraded the team's coaching and also gave the Blues new life and a chance to get a lot better and to at least turn themselves into a contender, a threat to make the playoffs. Before the coaching change, let's be honest, we all know this. That was unthinkable. I mean, the Blues were basically nothing. There was nothing going on. They were sinking, baby. But since Monty's first game, Jim Montgomery's been terrific. In his first game, we're not saying the Blues are perfect, so don't, spare me the comments on that. But I'm just saying, since Monty's first game back on November the 25th, that win at Madison Square Garden over the Rangers, since starting then, the Blues have put together a record of 13-8-3. It's a point percentage of .604. It ranks tied for 10th in the NHL since he took over as coach. So they were 26th in points percentage before the coaching change. So they've gone from 26th to 10th. Yeah, as I said, that's dramatic impact. And you know that already. But since the coaching change, the Blues have scored 56% of all of the goals, 59% of the even strength goals during competition, and 60% of the 5-on-5 goals. At 5-on-5, the Blues have outscored the Blues under Montgomery have outscored opponents 78-61. Before the change, wow, they were hideous at 5-on-5. I have a number on that here in a minute. Before the change, the Blues, as I mentioned, were 26 in the NHL in points percentage. And to get to that 5-on-5 stat for you, they had under Drew Bannister, they had only scored like 41.7% of the goals at 5-on-5. But since the change, they're scoring 60% of the goals at 5-on-5. I mean, that's just crazy stuff. And every time the Blues get into a little lull where the offense isn't clicking, they've had, a couple of clunkers not too long ago. There's a tendency to think, oh, well, hey, Monty's really good. We're glad he's the coach. The Blues are going to be in better hands with him. But I guess that kind of magic shot wore off. The Blues are sort of reverting back to what they were. And no, I honestly can say I've never felt that. I've never felt that for 1 minute. I just expect that there will be some fluctuations. I mean, you can't fix everything in less than 2 months. You can't completely transform the character or the competitiveness as your team. Not all the way. There's still going to be some nights where you're just like, geez, that looks like something from earlier in the season. The Blues, for example, with the special teams, that needs some tending to. They're running a special teams deficit. I think they've scored 11 power play goals since Monty took over, and I think they've given up 15 power play goals. So they're running a deficit there. But anyway, before the change, the Blues were ranked 23rd in 5-on-5 goals per 60 minutes. 23rd. Since the change, they're 5th in the league in 5-on-5 goals per 60 minutes. So you go from 23rd to 5-on-5 is the most important part of hockey, as you know. You go from 23rd, 5-on-5 goals per 60 minutes, 23rd, all the way up to 5th. That opens your eyes, right? Before the change, or since the change, there's been a huge improvement in the Blues preventing goals. Under Drew Bannister, the Blues were 27th in the league at yielding 5-on-5 goals per 60 minutes. 27th. Under Monty, the Blues are 3rd, as in great. 3rd in the NHL in goals allowed per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. I don't know why I'm talking so slowly. Should I speed it up? Or you can speed it up in the controls. You can make me talk like this if you want. Since Montgomery became the coach, Jordan Binnington and Joel Hofer have combined to do this. Their save percentage since the change is their save percentage is second best in the league at 5-on-5, third best in the league at even strength, and 8th in the league at all strengths. Before that, way down. That's because they're not under this constant barrage. I've explained this before, but the Blues were losing the high danger area battle. It was lopsided. The Blues goaltenders were under siege. They were just getting bombarded with premium shots. Monty's flipped that. I've mentioned this in 2 other videos, but just a brief mention again. He has flipped that. The Blues now control a much larger share of high danger chances. It was the other way around before he took over. So now you're giving your goaltenders, who are very, very good, you're giving them a chance to win, to do great things and win. It's a fair fight, as I like to say, right? We mentioned the special teams. Like I said, I think Monty is fantastic, but I didn't expect that he would cure everything in less than 2 months. But the other aspect of the improvement under this new coach is we're seeing individual players rise up and play their best hockey of the season. He has gotten the necessary and the desirable response from these guys after we saw so many disappointing performances from them individually and as a team earlier this season. The Blues have a breakout guy. I don't know if you say a bona fide breakout star. Is it too early to call him a star? Is he a star in the making? I don't know. But his name is Dylan Holloway. And in his first season as a Blue, after Doug Armstrong went out and did that offer sheet raid, which brought him and Holloway and the defenseman Philip Broberg to St. Louis, 2 age 23 guys, former number 1 first round draft choices. Anyway, Holloway was doing fine under Coach Bannister. You could see that there was something there for sure. But he is really kind of turned into an elite performer with Montgomery directing the talent. Now, that's got to be proven over the test of time. It's, a relatively small sample. I think the Blues have played 24 games since Montgomery became their coach. But still, for whatever it's worth, this is where I'm saying he's turning in an elite performance. I'm not saying that, he is now officially an elite player, but he's been playing like one since the coaching change. Holloway ranks 5th among all NHL forwards with 19 points. That's 8 goals, 11 assists. 19 points since the coaching change. That's 5th highest among NHL forwards. And it puts him above since November the 25th. Dylan Holloway's got more points than Nathan McKinnon, David Pastrnak, Sid Crosby, and Nikita Kucherov. And there's a bunch of others, but I wanted to name the most prominent names. That's pretty impressive. Smaller sample and all that, but man, that is still pretty cool, right? Braden Shen has dramatically elevated his game. Jordan Kyrou has 14 goals, 7 assists since the takeover by Monty. Robert Thomas has returned to last season's form when he was at his best ever in the NHL. When Pavel Buchnevich has been on the ice at 5-on-5, the Blues have outscored the other side 21-11 since Monty took over. And, Buchnevich, partially because Bannister kept insisting on playing him at center, and that's not where he belongs. But Buchnevich, even though I don't think we've seen his A game consistently enough, he's still a much different player because Monty has got him going again after what had been a slow start. And as you know, Montgomery has concocted a dynamic line with Shen, Holloway, and Kyrou. This was evident last night in the 4-1 win over Calgary, and it was evident, it's been evident for a while. And that sweep over Calgary at Enterprise Center, really big deal. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, I'm using their entire performance as a line this season. So at 5-on-5, Shen, Holloway, and Kyrou have played 176 minutes together so far. In that time, the Blues have outscored opponents 12-6. They've doubled them up, 12-6. And with that trio leading the way, the Blues have controlled 59% of the shots on goal at 5-on-5, 64% of the scoring chances at 5-on-5, and 65% of the high danger shots on net at 5-on-5. Since Monty put that line together, he was on to something. He knew what he was doing. They're really a lot of fun to watch. And here's something else, because the Blues have a really nice defensive pairing in Colton Parayko and Cam Fowler. And when that top line or the second line, listen, the hottest line, when that hot line is out on the ice and they're joined on the ice at 5-on-5 by Parayko and Fowler, the Blues have scored 71% of the goals, and they have controlled 72% of the scoring chances. That's a strong group of five to have out there. I can't even talk, man. I'm sorry. That is a strong group of five to have out there on the ice, right? I mean, that's really strong play. I was looking at all the Blues defensemen since Montgomery became the coach. All but two of them of the regular Blues defensemen have been on the ice for more goals scored than more goals allowed. So they're easily in the plus column. Look, Justin Falk is still trying to get his game together. I mean, I'm just going to leave it at that. There's been signs where he looks like he's getting better, and then he kind of relapses. They got to get him going. Monty's got to get him going. I think he will get him going because Monty's got a nice touch with this kind of thing. And while the Blues have the same amount of goals scored and goals allowed when Scott Perunovich is on the ice, it's a little misleading because he has – here comes a fancy pants stat. Perunovich has an expected goals for percentage that's way above average. So what I'm trying to say is those metrics would indicate he's better than what the surface numbers show us. Parayko, my goodness. Remember a couple years ago, 3 years ago, hey, let me raise my hand. I was doing it too. Just tired of watching this guy play. There wasn't much going on. He seemed almost lethargic. He could have had a bad back. It could have been this. It could have been that. But he looked like a guy who, the older he was getting, the more vulnerable he seemed. And the older he was getting, the more poorly he played, even though the dude always consumed tons and tons of ice time where you could use him in every situation. And there is value in that. But he just wasn't the guy, Parayko. He wasn't the guy we thought he was going to be, a guy that we saw earlier in his career, a guy that we saw in the Stanley Cup run, team with Bouwmeester, and they were fantastic. And you thought, well, Parayko's kind of going to step into that void after Alex Pietrangelo left in free agency. And it took a long time. And I'm not saying he was a dog player or anything, but to get back to where he's a dominant presence on the ice, I think he's there. I think he's become a force. And I think Montgomery's unlocked something, right? he's scoring a bunch of goals by himself, Parayko, and he's smothering the other team's offense. I mean, good luck trying to get around that mountain, right? Since the coaching change, the Blues, when Parayko is out there at 5-on-5, since the coaching change, the Blues have outscored opponents 26-16 with the big man on the ice at 5-on-5. And he's actually played pretty well in all of the defensive pairings, but the Fowler thing looks really, really good. And Fowler, man, what are you going to say about him? He has fit in exceptionally well when he was traded here by Anaheim. That was a wonderful trade by Army. I loved it at the time, love it even more now. What a nice fit for what the Blues needed. So when Fowler is in action, because he's played a lot with Parayko, but he's also played some other defense partners. The bottom line on Fowler, period, when he's been on the ice at 5-on-5, the Blues have outgunned opponents 20-11 in goals. And that Parayko-Fowler pairing looks like a money combination so far. The other question out there, the first question I asked today is like, do you believe Blues, right? The other question is, should the Blues be active at before or right at the March 7th trade deadline? Should Armstrong strive to add some talent? He added Fowler. That's working out great. Should he go out and do it again? Get some talent in here that would reinforce a vulnerable area of the team, a spotty area of the team, and generally speaking, upgrade the roster? Well, absolutely, yes, he should. I think most of you agree with that. And the thing I want to make sure though is I'm not saying but you mortgage your future. I'm not saying you give away top prospects, not at all. But I'm thinking there's got to be some rental players out there that can fill a need, and they don't have to be big stars. They just have to be better than what you have. And it's got to be at a reasonable price. I'm not in favor of doing anything that would require Armstrong, really sacrificing something in the future, something of magnitude that the Blues would have to hear about it for years and years from their fans and media. I don't want to see a trade like that, right? I don't think you do either. The top need is a center, but maybe not in the way we thought. Like earlier in the season, it's like, well, Schen's not a number 2 center. Boy, they got to go get a number 2 center. Well, we talked about it. Schen's a different player since the coaching change. And if anything, he's getting better and better. And right now, I'm not saying that he is like one of the best number 2 centers in the league. But what I am saying is that he's doing a hell of a job there for the Blues since Jim Montgomery took over. And I would maintain that as much as we all love Oscar Sundqvist, I mean, heart of a lion and all that, I think they can do better than Sonny at centering the third line, finding someone to center the third line. If Army can do that, the bonus is that you can have Sundqvist as a fourth line center, and that's probably what he's best suited for. You need a little more oomph at the number 3 center just in terms of scoring punch, playmaking ability. I love Sonny. It's nothing against him. It's just like the Blues won the Stanley Cup after they moved Alex Steen to the fourth line to give them a hell of a combination for a fourth line. And Alex Steen understood, and he wasn't offended. He said, I'm going to do anything to help Saul win a Stanley Cup. So it's okay to move a guy down the line. I think you know that. I don't even know why I'm saying that. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Blues could use another scorer. And I don't know how much those guys would cost, even in a walk year, right? But we do know this: Brandon Saad's not the answer. I don't know that he's the answer to much of anything. All due respect, because he had that hat trick recently, and that was good to see. But here, I've given you a lot of positive numbers, but here's one you won't like. The metrics indicate he's been a real liability even since the coaching change was made, where you think that he would maybe lift off a little bit. With Saad out there at 5-on-5, the Blues have been outscored 17-9. That's pretty ugly, right? This goes without saying. I'm going to repeat it. He's not going to do – Army ain't going to do anything that's going to compromise the team's future. All the top prospects will remain intact. I don't think he should make a high-risk trade. I doubt that many of you think he should make a high-risk trade. But surely there will be some pending free agents that come in here and do a job and probably do that job at a reasonable price as far as the trade compensation. Listen, Armstrong got the coach he wanted. The players have responded to that coach. The Blues are a much better all-around team, an imperfect team, but a much better all-around team since late November. This 2-game sweep of Calgary this week at the Enterprise Center was massively important to the Western Conference wildcards race, because with the 2 wins over Calgary in 3 days, they're trying to catch Calgary. The Blues are suddenly 1 point behind Calgary. Vancouver is also 1 point behind Calgary. But the Blues are 1 point behind Calgary in the race for the number 2 wildcard ticket. Calgary would have the number 2 ticket in the wild card. The Blues and Vancouver are 1 point behind. Now, the upcoming schedule, as many of you know, but just to remind everyone, or those who had not looked at the schedule yet, between now and I think it's February the 8th, the Blues are going to have 2 games in no particular order. They're going to have 2 games with Utah, 2 with Vegas. Then they're going to have single games against Dallas, Vancouver, Colorado, Edmonton, and Florida. That's a killer on the road type schedule, right? So if you want to look for signs of sustainability, that all of their good play has not been a fluke or an outlier, they're going to have a chance to prove it, because this is going to be a really big test. And you know what? That is the National Hockey League. Sometimes you got to take advantage of a softer schedule, and then other times you got to go out there and just grind for every point you can get in a stretch where you're playing some of the best teams in the league. But if the Blues, let me backtrack on this for a second. The Blues were really, really deep in the weeds. The fact that they even have a chance is wonderful, even with this tough schedule coming up. You could hardly see them on those playoff odds charts earlier in the season. But as I speak to you today, this afternoon, in January 17th, Money Puck gives St. Louis a 46.5% chance of making the postseason. The Blues have come a long, long way in a relatively short time. And if the Blues can keep it up, Armstrong certainly will invest in this group and give them a more realistic shot at making the playoffs for the first time since the 21-22 season. But again, I think a lot of this will be influenced by how they do during this upcoming very tough stretch of schedule. But the only reason the Blues have a chance, even now, is because of what Armstrong did in late November. That's when he made his best transaction, his best move of the season, replacing Bannister with Montgomery. I know it wasn't a trade per se, but you're kind of trading out one coach and putting in another. That was a hell of a trade right there. Listen, I appreciate you all. Thanks for watching. And I guess I'll see you Monday morning, unless there's some breaking news over the weekend. But thank you, as always, kindly for your support of the Bernie Show here on YouTube. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.